Both the 10th anniversary since the release of Arkham Asylum and the 80th anniversary of Batman himself have just passed, and I've recently spent the last few weeks playing through the entire Arkham series, minus the crappy mobile games. These games are loaded with fantastic takes on relatively common gaming tropes. They turn an open world into a brilliant aerial obstacle course, they turn bog standard platforming into a fourth wall shattering gauntlet of terror, and they break the trend of boring video game villains by taking Gotham City's iconic rogues gallery and bringing them to life with awesome results. Needless to say, the Arkham games are remembered fondly for a reason, but when playing them, I was reminded of one thing they do really well that doesn't get anywhere near as much attention as the scarecrow bits from Asylum or the voice acting or any of that stuff. The unsung hero of the Arkham series is the Predator sections. Batman's Predator mode is a masterclass in how to design satisfying, tense stealth gameplay that amazingly remains challenging and with new ideas to work with across 3 whole games. And it does that by going back to basics to really engage with what makes stealth as a concept such a universally compelling idea in games throughout human history. As these cute animals are demonstrating, games involving stealth are often used in nature to teach children how to hunt and how not to be hunted. These 2 indivisible parts are the key to every game involving stealth. One participant is proactive and needs to catch the other, the second player is reactive and needs to get away or to reach safety. Both positions engage with the game very differently, but neither can really exist alone. For example, in Shadow of Mordor, the focus is on you as a hunter in a very proactive role. You've got sneak attacks, high profile targets to take down, and a general feeling that you're in control. The fun here comes from the satisfaction of planning an assault and then the thrill of executing it before getting stuck in and mopping up the stragglers. On the other side of the coin, you've got something like Volume, where the goal is to react to the positioning and movements of your opponents in order to stay out of sight. Here it's the tension and fear of getting caught, followed by the eventual catharsis of evading these weird AI baddies that drives the enjoyment. These are both okay games, but when going back and playing them for research, they both seem to get kinda samey pretty fast. It was difficult to feel like I was triumphing over these dumb orcs because they rarely posed a threat, but equally, Volume's bad guys were just annoying. If they spotted me, chances are I was basically just dead, and so it would be better to just let them kill me so I could restart instead of actually play the game. Both Shadow of Mordor and Volume, as well as a bunch of other games, only engage with one half of that hunter-prey relationship, and that means that they often come across as feeling a little bit shallow or stilted. So, what can we do about this? Well, in nearly all games with a hider and a seeker, players swap between roles. And that's because your perspective and experience from one half of the game can actually make your play in the other half better and more meaningful. By letting you engage with that conflict within a single gameplay space, like in Batman, truly great stealth games create the feeling of a dynamic, evolving conflict that lets you feel the highs of hunting down an enemy, as well as the brilliant tension of trying not to be found yourself. In the Batman Arkham games, you'll switch between these 2 cognitive states multiple times in any given Predator segment. To start with, you're made to play proactively, scoping out each stealth arena and moving in to take out some lone goons. But, inevitably, owing to a takedown making noise, a heartbeat monitor alarm, or a villain checking in, the bad guys will be alerted and you'll immediately have to go on the defensive as they start to hunt you. This continues until they lose sight of you, whereupon you can go on the hunt once again. You're essentially playing 2 different games at once, and this ends up challenging your strategic and problem solving skills at the same time as you plan for the future, as well as find a way to execute on your current strategy simultaneously. With every swap between hunter and prey, proactive and reactive, the state of play has changed, and presents you with all new, potentially harder challenges you've now got to deal with. It's this almost improvisational feel that I think makes stealth games special. You've got this back and forth relationship with the game in constantly varying circumstances, all building towards satisfying payoff for the high levels of tension. It's the same way our ancient ancestors would have felt hunting whatever the prehistoric equivalent of the Joker's goons was. Now, it's all very good to go on about evolutionary psychology stuff that I am in no way qualified to talk about, but how do games actually evoke that feeling on a mechanical level and encourage players to engage with both styles of play? Well, there's a few ways, but they all keep the same idea in mind, that stealth games shine when they're about a conflict that relies less on raw skill and twitch reactions, and is instead more cerebral, testing your planning and systemic knowledge, whilst also exploiting emotional tension to carry players through moments of downtime. So, let's start as we mean to go on, by taking a look at one of the most common complaints people have with shoehorned in stealth bits from games that aren't normally focused on it, and that's the old instant loss when you get spotted mechanic. I don't need to tell you that sections like this dumb bit in Majora's Mask Mask or Ocarina of Time are really frustrating. But why? Well, it's because hiding in stealth games in of itself usually isn't very fun. You're more or less just waiting around. What is interesting is the sudden shift away from being in control, where you have to suddenly deal with all the fallout from getting spotted, the apprehension and build up to this switch where you're figuring out your getaway plan beforehand, as well as the struggle to re-establish control of the situation. When getting spotted is game over, there's no payoff to that tension and no change in circumstance. You're just shunted back to the start again. To fix this, instead of just killing you for making a single mistake, a lot of great games have what I call granular failure states, where it's possible to make a mistake, suffer the consequences, and have to work to get back to that hunter state from a compromised position. This was a gameplay loop first pioneered by the excellent Metal Gear Solid. Normally, Snake is on the offensive, sneaking through Shadow Moses, but occasionally you'll get spotted and the tables will turn, forcing you to run away and hide from the guards until the alarm timer runs out. Letting players fight or flee their way out of sticky situations rather than just having them do it all over again is a great way to add some scrappy James Bond-esque tension to the experience, and I think is a large part of the iconic Metal Gear atmosphere. It's no surprise that a bunch of different games, Batman included, borrow from the increasingly deranged scrawls of Hideo Kojima once in a while. In Invisible Ink, the game is designed around the fact that your agents aren't going to be able to remain hidden forever, particularly when you don't know where all the guards and security cameras are going to be. So, whenever you get spotted, the building's alarm level increases, which makes things gradually harder, which leads to more opportunities to make another mistake, ratcheting up the tension as the mission goes on. Batman does this too. If you get spotted, getting away with a series of grapples is usually pretty easy, but it means the goons you're fighting will have wised up to your tricks and will start destroying gargoyles, chucking bombs into vents, or taking hostages to make your life more difficult. In this way, you're still punished for messing up and getting spotted, but that failure is used to catalyse some tough, spur-of-the-moment gameplay decisions rather than just forcing you to repeat work you've already done. Giving players the means to acquire some incremental success by knocking out guards, gathering loot, or accumulating points is also a great idea, as it adds a nice back and forth to go along with the player's shifting role in the game, as well as functioning as a way to raise the stakes through winning, as the player now has more to lose. Of course, gradually increasing the tension with more and more complications only works if players aren't playing it safe and are instead going to be taking interesting risks to both hunt enemies down and to run away. One of the best ways to do this is to create a pervasive feeling of vulnerability, both for the player and for the enemies. By making individual foes easy to take out, games bait players into using risky, interesting strategies, like setting up traps using the game's systemic mechanics, or going for the classic knockout cuddle, which requires you to get right up close to someone who wants to kill you. However, this needs to be backed up with a genuine sense of threat if the player messes up, to give those decisions emotional weight, and also to incentivize smart, interesting play over brute force. Dishonored is really good here. In head-on combat, enemies will need to be hit a few times or have a weakness exposed before they'll go down. But when taken out from stealth, either with a melee takedown, a crossbow bolt, or some other fancy nonsense, they can usually be taken out instantly. Of course, while these strategies are often more effective, they're also going to be more risky. Messing up a takedown can leave you exposed, devices are expensive and can be wasted, and a missed bolt can create a chain reaction of noise that alerts a whole building. And as you might have expected, no one's winning a fight against an entire barracks of guards. All this means that a player's actions have an immediate feeling of consequence and gives the impression that their decisions and their mistakes actually matter. High risk, high reward play pushes players out of their comfort zone, which not only builds some great tension as you sneak around, but also provides some great moments of panic when everything inevitably goes tits up and you need to run away. The loop I mentioned earlier in the Arkham games is a fantastic example of this in action. Batman might be a crime-fighting superhero, but he's ultimately still human. Going up against more than two dudes with guns is basically suicide. But it's also very easy to pick off stragglers with one of your many gadgets or a swooping air attack. When you're hunting down enemies proactively and deciding the flow of the game, most of the best takedown methods bring you out of the safety of the shadows and potentially into the firing line of dudes you can't beat in a straight up fight. This puts the game in control and forces you into a more reactive playstyle when you get spotted. This leads to some great chase sequences as you run away under fire or get stuck into some brilliantly tense, unplanned engagements as you try to maybe take out an extra guy before running or finish off a group using your gadgets, fully aware that one screw up probably means death. By making both sides of the conflict vulnerable, players are forced to engage with that hunting-hiding dichotomy if they want to succeed, and passive, safe play is discouraged because if players don't take risks, they won't be able to play efficiently. This is actually a big problem in the newer Deus Ex games. In most stealth games, the aforementioned death hug takes ages, locks you into a long animation, and makes you easily spottable by enemies, meaning finding the right time to strike is an important test of skill. However, Adam Jensen's take on the move can be used multiple times in quick succession to take out more than one guy at once, makes you invulnerable for the duration, and recharges over time. A move that's supposed to put you into dangerous, unexpected situations is actually one of the safest means of dispatching enemies, as well as being the most efficient, meaning that many players will use it as a crutch for the entire game and never end up having to make interesting calls under pressure. And that's really where the fun in stealth games comes from. You can build up tension as well as you like and put players into interesting situations, but without encouraging players to flex their knowledge and mastery, they'll always default to a boring, efficient but safe strategy. The best way to fix this problem is to give players a bunch of different play options, where none are inherently superior. Hitman is the king of handing players a bunch of different toys and then just letting them get on with it, and this leads to experiences that are totally unique while still testing players in interesting ways. Each level is set up with an incredibly broad goal. Kill this person, steal this thing, you get what I mean. It's left up to you to figure out how to get that done by using the game's interconnected web of systems and multiple avenues to murder. Taking out your target requires bouncing each level's schedule of events off the disguise system, the guard's alertness level, and a million different tiny variables like the legality of items, noise, and which routes and pathways you have unlocked. Kills in Hitman are much more than sneaking up to someone and pressing a button. It requires you to manipulate and fiddle with an entire world. This level of systemic freedom is great because it puts the pace, tension, and ultimately the success of the mission in the player's hands, and that personal connection is what separates an organic stealth experience from a flashy, perfectly choreographed, but ultimately linear facsimile of one you'd find in other inferior games. Even much lighter games with much more basic stealth systems, like the unnamed game that features a goose, can benefit from this approach. Giving players lots of toys and mechanics to fiddle about with to get what they want done, like the chasing system, NPCs replacing dropped objects, and how the world reacts to your honk, is enough to make playing as the horrible goose fun through personal agency alone. Of course, the Arkham games pull this off too. In this boss fight against an objectively worse version of Mr. Freeze than the one played by Arnie,
what killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age!
You've got to perform 5 different kinds of stealth takedowns on him to finally punch through his armour. There are a grand total of 12 different kinds of takedown you can perform in the arena, from zapping Freeze with an electromagnet to surprising him from below. The whole fight is one giant test of how well you can analyse a level, perceive different strategies, and execute them against a powerful foe, because all these takedowns will also work on regular enemies, and each one has their own unique tactical applications for you to consider that get introduced over time. Grappleable gargoyles let you hang down and serve as quick escape points, vents let you scuttle around to surprise enemies, the Disruptor can temporarily disable problematic foes, and Arkham Knight even lets you boss enemies around with a voice modulator. Each new mechanic is another tool in your utility belt when it comes to dealing with enemies, who can also advance in complexity. Some baddies will sense your detective vision, others will spot you on goggles, and some are immune to regular takedowns. And as each level gets harder, your systemic knowledge of how best to use your expanding repertoire gets tested more and more. The key to all 3 of these choice-based approaches to stealth design is that they let players engage with as much or as little of the game as they want to at any given point. The greatest strength of the best stealth games is that you kinda get out what you put in. The more you commit to hunting down enemies, the more thrilling running away will be, and vice versa. By giving players the freedom to challenge themselves in the way they want, or to develop their own playstyle, getting them emotionally invested becomes much easier. Whether it's a particular favourite kill method in Hitman, or much more ambitious meta objectives like pacifist playthroughs of Dishonored, stealth games that let players express themselves can better tap into that primal emotional core that's at the heart of the genre. It's that mix of fear and adrenaline, modified by tactical thinking, that makes Batman such a great fit for stealth games. Bruce Wayne is an intelligent character who likes to stay in control, but he's constantly haunted by the fact that he's just as damaged, traumatized, and vulnerable as the bad guys he puts away. The real genius of the Arkham games isn't that they make you feel like Batman, but that they use the inherently evocative nature of stealth gameplay to explore one of comic book's most iconic characters through play. The feeling of cool control when you expertly dispatch a room of enemies shows us Batman in his element, but when you're desperately smoke bombing your way out of trouble, looking for a vent to cower in, or chucking batarangs to stall enemies while you think of a plan, that's when we get to see the other, weaker side of the character that's key to his appeal. Proactive and reactive, hunter and hunted, scary bat and flawed vulnerable human. Hide and seek is an experience that humans have been dealing with for thousands of years, and it's still just as effective today. We've just got to tap into that same emotional core. The one that's made Batman such a compelling hero for more than 80 years. Though I did always wonder about that, because bats are basically harmless, and they're quite cute, really. Not exactly a symbol of fear, are they? Now, freak aneurysm man, or crushing sense of existential dread brought on by an uncertain future man, those are some proper fear-based heroes. Hit me up, DC. Let's talk. Hello, and thanks for watching. I am now ready to never touch any Batman-related media again for 100 years. Wait, what do you mean Rocksteady are gonna make a new one? Ugh, fine. Until then, why don't you watch a cool YouTube channel called People Make Games by the brilliant Chris Bratt. It's a series of small to very long pseudo-documentaries about various aspects of video gaming culture, from a gun that got nerfed to Neopets. I mean, it's more interesting than it sounds, go and have a look. But even more interesting than that is my list of super cool, top tier Patreon supporters, and they are Alex DeLoch, Asaran, Auno94, Baxter Heel, Brian Notariani, Calvin Han, Colin Haman, Chill, Daniel Metjes, Dirk Jan Karambeld, Evie, Feetsalot, Ibathon, Jesse Ryan, Jonathan Christensen, Joshua Binswanger, Lee Berman, Lucas Slack, Lunar Eagle 1996, Mace Window 54, Manuki, Max Filipov, Patrick Romberg, Philby the Bilby, Phony Homeless, Pim Roggeband, Prospero, Ray's Dad, Sam Myers, Samuel Vanderplatz, Strateger in Ultima, Yaron Mirren, and Chow. All these people help make the channel possible, and if you'd like to, you can too. Patreon supporters get exclusive game designy insights, early access to videos, update vlogs, and permanent absolution for any adblock related sins. So, give me money, please. The crack isn't going to buy itself. On that note, have a nice day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!